This video is brought to you by Squarespace. Whether you need a domain, website, or online store, make it happen with Squarespace.
What's up guys, and welcome back to the channel. Today's a very special day. Today marks the return of black zirconium, and this has been a day I personally have been long awaiting. This material is just so crazy to work with. First of all, it sparks like crazy, so I'm going to break out the angle grinder for this one, as well as some slow motion. We're going to do some really cool kind of pyrotechnic stuff with this. And then also, as you probably know, if you heat oxidize this with a blowtorch, for example, it gets a really nice and just perfect, beautiful black finish onto it. So that should be really cool. And then we're also going to be using this ball mill here. We're finally going to be breaking out the mill again. I love any excuse I can get to use it. And we're going to put shaping all around our ring, kind of like that. And it's going to make it look like a revolver barrel. So overall, this will be a really cool looking ring. It should look just like a revolver from a gun, just a miniaturized ring version of it. And then I've actually got a stamp set in the mill, just some really teeny stamps that we can stamp the caliber on it. So it should be a really cool and fairly accurate representation of an actual revolver barrel. So I'm really excited for this one. Let's go ahead and jump right into it.
So first things first, I need to cut a section from this rod to make our zirconium ring from, and then you'll notice I'm leaving it a lot longer than I normally do when I just cut out a ring slug, and that's because I need to give it plenty of space for the rotary table to be able to hold on to it. That way we can do the milling and shaping of this ring. So now I have the mill all ready. We've got the zirconium in place and the ball mill is ready to go. I've got the depth set, that way I can have a consistent depth all the way around. And then what you'll see me do is I just cut into the zirconium and then I rotate the rotary table by 60 degrees and then I continue this process. And then I go around it a few times and I just take a gradual cut every single time. And then eventually I'm left with the depth of cut that we want for this ring. Now I've got the shaping on the outer diameter done, it's time to switch back over to the lathe. My first step I'm going to do is I'm going to even out this front face, make sure it's perfectly flat. Beforehand this was just raw off the bandsaw, and so we needed to do that just to make sure it was perfectly even all the way around. Now I'm switching over with a drill bit in my tailstock, and then I'm slowly going to be hollowing this thing out. You'll see I start with a smaller drill bit and I work my way up until we've got a big enough hole in there that I can fit the boring bar inside, and then I'm able to widen out the ring all the way to our final ring diameter. Now I want to take a second and talk to you guys about Squarespace. Squarespace makes creating your online presence easy. They have an all-in-one platform that means there's nothing to install, patch, or upgrade ever. They also have a large selection of beautifully designed templates, and they came out with 8 new ones in 2018 alone. They have a domain management system which makes it easy to transfer or set up a new domain with Squarespace. They have 24/7 award-winning customer support that's always there if you have any questions. And because of their online stores, it's never been easier to sell your products or services online. In fact, if you sign up using my link and you post a screenshot of your new website to Instagram using hashtag #PadSquarespace, you'll be entered to be featured on my Instagram page. So what I'll do is I'll scroll through all of the entries and I'll select some of my favorites and I'll make a post about them. And the idea is that it'll give you a kickstart for your new online store. I'll have a complete list of instructions in an Instagram post, but for now you can head over to squarespace.com for a free trial, and when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/PatrickAdair to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. Now it's time to show off the flammable capabilities of zirconium. You'll see I'm letting the shavings accumulate on my boring bar here, and because there's so many in the way there's a lot of friction building up, it quickly overheats, and you can see eventually the whole thing catches fire and the flame itself is actually really bright, but that's just a sample. There's a lot more to come. Now it's time to part this thing off, and so you'll see I put the groove in the zirconium with the lathe bit that I've got here. and then I switch over to the angle grinder, and this is where you're going to see all the sparks. So you can see that's just so bright. We left the settings on the camera the same, that way you'd get kind of an accurate representation of how bright it gets. And then in this second slow motion shot, this is where we turn that ISO down. And so everything appears a lot darker than it does in person. That way you can see the individual sparks without it just making the entire screen white. And you can see just how cool this is. It honestly looks like fireworks. You can see the individual pieces flying off, and then they explode at a certain point, and they explode into a bunch of sparks. And so this is just so much fun to do. That's one of the biggest reasons I like working with zirconium, just because it's really entertaining to work with. Now I do some final touch-ups to the inner diameter of the ring. I make sure we've got our dimensions exactly how we want it. And then instead of a rounded comfort finish like I would do on most rings, I'm going for a sharper, more machined look. That way I think it'll match the gun theme that we've got going a little bit better. So I'm letting the bevel be really pronounced. And then when you see me sand and polish the rest of the ring, you'll notice that I avoid those bevels. That way they'll still have that fresh machined look to them. And for these next few steps, I'm just cleaning up all of the surfaces of the ring. I'm doing a lot of sanding, grinding, polishing, making sure it all looks good. And then I'm going to throw this into a rock tumbler for 2 days, and that's going to even everything out, give it a nice, consistent, and matte finish all over. Now back to the ring after leaving it in the rock tumbler for a couple of days, and we're ready to put the stamp on the side of it. And so I'm going to be stamping 44 cal on the side of it. It's meant to symbolize a 44 caliber revolver. And this step was actually pretty tricky to get the letters and the numbers as straight as possible. I spent about 40 attempts practicing before I actually did this, and you can see the end result wasn't 100% perfect, but I was really happy. You should have seen how bad some of my practice attempts were. So I'm super happy with the way it turned out, and now it's time for the final step, and that is the black oxide finish. So I'll do this on my lathe, that way I can set up this wire jig system that I've got here, and then I can have it rotating, that way I can evenly heat the ring. And then this step, it's just really simple. I'm just hitting it with the blowtorch and just making sure that I'm not going too far on it. Basically, the strategy is to just heat it until it's glowing a little bit red hot. And that might not show up well on camera, but I could see from my perspective, once it started glowing just a little bit, that's when I backed off, and then I cooled it off with water. After waiting a couple of minutes, I didn't want it to be too harsh, and the ring was finished. And that final black finish, it just added so much to the ring in my opinion. It's that classic gunmetal black that you'll see all the time. And so like you'll see in these photos, I think it really does look a lot like a revolver barrel, and so I'm really happy with the way it turned out. This was exactly what I had envisioned. So that's going to be it for this video, guys. Please do leave your feedback and let me know what you thought of this ring. This was a lot of fun to do, and it was a lot of anticipation. All the steps took me a lot of time, and then I had to wait for it to tumble in the rock tumbler, and then I had to wait for my stamps to come in the mail, all those different steps. So this was a long time in the making, and I'm just so glad to have this done and have the photos of it, and I just think it looks so nice. So let me know what you think, like I said, and if you have any suggestions for any other ring ideas, anything like that. This idea I got for this was from a viewer comment, and so I really do read your comments and I appreciate them, and a lot of the time it will result in a ring like this. So I do value your feedback and I love interacting with you guys. And if you want to definitely make sure that I'm seeing your comments, you can follow me on Instagram and comment there. I have a much smaller following over there, so it's a lot easier to manage all the comments, be able to read through them all, reply to you guys, all of that. So you can go ahead and follow me on there. If you want to see this ring for sale, let me know down in the comments. This is definitely a very time-consuming ring to make, and so depending on your guys' interest, I might be able to make this thing happen. But if you're interested in any of my other rings, you can of course check them out on my ring website. That's just patrickadairdesigns.com, and then I have my supplies website, patrickadairsupplies.com, and that's where I sell a lot of the tools and equipment that'll help you make rings. So that's it for this video, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next week.